It's preparing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To all our listeners, those that are tuning in on the Facebook Live, as well as those that are coming to join us for the first time. Basically, the Three Bros podcast is being hosted.
Istana.
Did you start?
Wait.
No, man. It says it's streaming live on my side, so we're good.
There,
Yeah.
you can start.
Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the first episode of the Three Bros podcast. Something new, led by Maulana Zakaria Matiani, Sidi Anwar Jatam, and myself, Muhammad Ismail. We basically thought that as much as we talk on a daily basis via WhatsApp and other mediums about pertinent topics, we decided that let's try and put together a podcast and see how it goes. So this is the first installment, nothing much in terms of deep preparation, but really something just to sort of stir the conversation, get some topics going and get some feedback. So we invite you to spend the next 45 minutes or so with us. We'll try and go until about 25, just about 45 minutes. And we'd like to welcome your participation via the Facebook Live. We've got Maulana Zakaria who will be checking out for the comments and trying to factor that in. We're hoping that in the future, inshallah, we can have this also on YouTube streaming so we can engage further with a broader audience and also others. It's not meant to be very, shall I call it, religious in a sense that we're going to use text and we're going to only focus on this topic that we've chosen for this evening, and I'll introduce the topic just now. It's not just about focusing on, say, the textual advices or the advices of the scholars, but it's really to open up the discussion to what's broader than that. And when I say broader than that, there's going to be social commentary in it, so we'll try to factor that in. With that, we'll continue then onto the topic, which for today is going to be charity, a topic that's pertinent in this time. One, of course, being the month of Dhul Hijjah, around the time of sacrifice, when many of us have taken out from our pockets to give in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, it is not the blood of the animal that reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather it is the God consciousness which you imbibe within yourself that is seen and what reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Zakaria, you're trying to do a duel there. I got some feedback. Put it on mute. You good? Okay. So no, I'm getting feedback, brothers. Someone's got the Maulana Zakaria, do you have your Facebook on at the same time? Okay, we good.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay,
Can you hear me?
Let's continue. The topic for today is going to be charity. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Maulana Zakaria in a very short space of time just to give us sort of a sense of what drove him to put together a piece this morning, which was, of course, prefaced by a nice meme, I would call it, a meme, if I may, which really said that, if I recall, Maulana, it said that don't post your charity on social media. And that led you to some thoughts which you put together. I will allow you to build on that. And then perhaps maybe we can get into the discussion as per what Anwar and I then shared thereafter. So Maulana Zakaria, for you to please sort of set up the discussion. Maulana Zakaria, you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I don't know, it's just delaying here by me. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. We're good.
Okay.
Please go for it. You don't need to worry about the delay. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. Okay. It's just a bit disturbing. I don't know why it's delaying like that. Okay. So anyway, what got me to discuss about this, doing your charity anonymously, is just hold on. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, Maulana Zakaria, we can hear you clearly.
It's yeah. Is it okay? It's better like that? Okay. So what got me to discuss this about the charity, and it was just observing that, you know, when you go through some of the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ is discussing about charity and the anonymity of giving. And when you look at the benefits of doing something in discretion, doing something privately against doing something publicly. And I just want to make it clear that it's not that I'm saying that we shouldn't do publicly, because mashallah, one of the guys also commented in when I posted the post earlier. And, you know, it's all about understanding people's opinions. We learn from that. Sometimes you could post something and somebody could post an opinion or, you know, a better view of something. And we're always learning. And I posted it because it was just something which I had observed. And he put in there that sometimes people do it publicly to encourage others to, you know, to come and do, to give charity. Sometimes you do it to encourage other people also that are not giving charity. So you do it publicly and your intentions are clear and it's done with sincerity. That is fine. But you know, in Islam, when you read about the lifestyle of the Prophet ﷺ, and when you study the hadith and you study the lives of our predecessors, you know, and just a very fast observation. I know it's a famous story, so some would attribute it to Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, some would attribute it to another scholar. But anyway, the scholars mentioned the story in Islamic history, that one of the scholars used to cover his face. And the reason for him covering his face was that he didn't want people to recognize him. Because why? When people recognized him, they would, you know, praise him. And that's why even when you read of Imam Shafi, again, they said that to a certain extent, you would throw dust in your face, or, you know, because why? You make it difficult now to be able to, because I don't know if you notice it, even especially when you read a nice qiraat or you give a nice lecture and they come to you, now you're still recovering, and somebody comes and says, "Hey, Molsap, one thing, that lecture, it hit home, huh? My hair was standing. It was so beautiful. I feel so good." You know, it makes it so difficult for you then to recover from those praises. You know, somebody, when you're reading a qiraat, and after the qira'ah, somebody comes to you and says, "Oh, your voice, you know, I've never ever heard somebody reciting like this here. It's the first time I heard." So would you rather have that a person doesn't praise you and you reap the full rewards, or you'll be in a battle with your desires, with your nerves playing the game on you, because now, you know, you have to constantly battle to say that, no, I read for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So basically what I'm saying is that the whole thing of giving charity, I would say, and this is again, you know, everybody is, you know, to their own opinion. I would say the best way to save yourself and the best way for precautions is to give it in discretion if possible. And also then, here's another, when you're giving it, and let's say somebody is videotaping it or whatever, try as much as possible for them to recognize the action and not the donor. I say it again, if it is that they want to take pictures and whatever, then let them take off the you know, you as the donor, you can shift away. And also, if you see in my post I wrote, one thing that we can all agree on is that when you're giving, don't show the faces of the people that you are giving charity to, because everybody knows it's not, yes, a person is in need of assistance, but, you know, as much as possible, try not to expose or let it be seen to who you're giving charity, because tomorrow those people have family, they have friends, they go back to work, there's places where they are known. So, you know, this was the whole reason that motivated me, just as I felt that the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of you know, concealing what the left hand, what the you know, the hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that you give in such a way that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand, or the left hand doesn't know what the right hand has given, meaning that, you know, nobody knows what you are giving. So I found that there's a reason why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned these ahadith, and that was the reason why I you know, put out that post.
Shukran, Maulana. We'll definitely get into some further other points that you also raised in there, but thank you for the sort of prefacing the discussion. I'd like to ask Anwar. Anwar, I mean, you're close to the pulse of things from a social perspective. What are the benefits of social media? Let's rather not only focus on the negatives that we could find and we can talk about, and we may get to that, but what are some of the benefits of having this social media available to us and harnessing it in the way we give charity? For example, Gift of the Givers. Gift of the Givers have become so well known for the great work they're doing, not because they're keeping it, you know, on the down low. They've been broadcasting it. They've shown us. They allow people and others to see, and that also builds confidence. So I guess there's a fine balance, and I'd like Anwar to maybe just perhaps maybe go into it from a social perspective and talk about how do we harness the benefits in a very sort of controlled way that always, of course, protects us in some way, shape, or form from that showing off type you know, angle that could come in. Anwar?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for having me tonight on this this live discussion. Look, I mean, we all know the huge amount of benefits for social media on a daily basis, right? But social media itself can be very toxic. Sometimes the toxic charity that we engage in, and I'm going to explain what I mean by toxic charity, becomes further, let's say, toxified, you know, by the way in which we're using social media. So on the one hand, yes, we want to, let's say, invite others towards also doing good, amr bil ma'ruf, right? And encouraging them also towards, let's say, being generous, giving to, let's say, people who are poor, who are disadvantaged, who are poverty-stricken, who find themselves in difficult circumstances. We want to show the relief efforts of our different organizations who are doing sterling amounts of work continuously. So those are naturally the benefits. That it's one thing about, you know, let's say, the work that we're doing being broadcasted. It's quite another thing when we strip in basically the recipients of aid of their own dignity. For me, that is the larger issue at play. How do we give?
I get that, but don't focus.
How do we give and hand over charity?
Anwar, let's start with the positives first, lest we go into the negatives completely from the beginning. Maybe you, like I said, you've got your finger close to the pulse of the social networks. Let's try and focus on the positives. What positives do you see first? Let's give the good stuff. Let's focus on that. Can you tell us?
Well, naturally, I mean, it's firstly, in terms of enjoining good, encouraging others towards goodness, right? Mileage for the organizations themselves. Above and beyond that also is drawing people's attention to what is actually happening around us, you know, because sometimes we can live in a bubble. I mean, there are people in the country who probably regard last week's incidents in Durban as just, you know, something very, very small, but it's actually changed the trajectory of this country, or rather impacted it a lot. So in terms of, like, let's say, getting a message out there, bringing our attention to what's actually happening, I mean, those benefits of social media can never be, let's say, undermined. So I would say, you know, largely on those 3 to 4 things, that's where we've seen the benefits of social media in the NGO and aid space.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe perhaps then can you tell us, for example, what are the benefits of things like, you know, people putting their post on Instagram and creating so much hype that it draws also attention to the broader needs within society. So for example, we see a lot of the requirements from a charity perspective to be, for example, in the last while, it's just been about food, you know, but also then using that to broaden the scope of what is required in terms of charity, not only for food, but we also need development. We need infrastructure. As an example, how would you say, social media is being utilized to harness again the greater requirement, more than just the immediate need?
Okay, so this brings me back to my initial point about, like, let's say the types of charity that we engage in, right? So, for example, we know that social media right now is almost even more powerful than traditional media options. We're talking about particularly print media, right? I mean, ask yourselves a question: when was the last time you went out to a shop to buy a newspaper or a magazine, as opposed to maybe just looking at news online, or an online subscription that you have, right? Even for a lot of the print media that we find in our masajid, right? That same information is on, let's say, the different social media pages of the different organizations that are featured in those masjid newsletters, right? So that's, that's how powerful social media is. But drawing attention to the larger issues that exist, we as a community are an extremely generous community. Let me preface what I want to say by this. We are an extremely generous community. It's that spirit of generosity that we have, that very magnanimous attitude that we have, right, stems from our beliefs as Muslims. Constantly throughout the Quran and the Sunnah, we encourage towards spending in the path of Allah. And Muslims, through this, the 1400 years of the Risala of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we've been imbibing that spirit. So naturally, when we buy into a cause, we come fully to the party, and we do so by providing all the necessary support to the best of our capability. We do know that there are people in this community who are so generous that they will even put themselves, let's say, in detriment, right? Would even inconvenience their own selves, right, to be able to assist others. Particularly when those others are Muslim. And we've seen in the last week that when the Muslim community responded, we did not differentiate based on race, color, religion, and gender. We helped everyone, mashallah, right? However, where the Muslim community seems to be missing the boat is that we have been stuck on the idea of, let's say, what we can term as toxic charity. The idea of just providing people with immediate relief, as opposed to relief that actually develops them and brings them out of, like, let's say, the cycle of poverty. Because poverty is a vicious cycle. Poverty is something that's structural, it's institutional. But they're very powerful tools within Islam that can allow us to break the poverty cycle. It's just a question of us, let's say, revisiting our understanding of how do we, let's say, distribute things like zakah, lillah, sadaqah. How do we utilize it to bring people out of poverty and allow them to stand on their own feet? When we do that, we're becoming advocates for the poor, and then we are actually able to change the circumstances on the ground.
Okay. Look, I mean, the idea of toxic charity is quite severe. I'm not sure if Maulana, you got some thoughts, Maulana Zakaria, on that. Do you like the term? I mean, I don't know if I agree that the term it sounds a bit harsh, but I'd like to maybe check in with you, Maulana. What do you think about the topic that Anwar sort of unpacked there under the banner of toxic charity?
I mean, I'm just going to go a bit, if we may call it, what does toxic, a bit radical on this idea of charity also. I mean, if you look at, just to elaborate on what Brother Anwar was saying about the way we give charity, and between empowering and where it just lasts for that moment, and all these years. I mean, as also as an imam of the masjid, one of the things that I see toxic is people that have to come to the masjid and stand outside the masjid, and those people are mothers and grandmothers and parents to children. And how do we? What's the solution in terms of stopping that? Because I don't see it happening outside churches and outside, and you mostly see it outside masajid, especially on days like Eid especially on these days. I mean, once, you know, some used to even, and this is not even exaggerating, sleep the day before Eid outside the masjid. And every year upon year, sometimes 2-3 years, you're seeing the same faces coming for that amount of money. So what is the strategy and what is the plan of turning this zakat and charity also into something which can, you know, lift somebody off from that poverty and turn it into something which can empower them? So this is one of the things. I don't want us to drift or you know, to digress from the topic, but these are some of the things which also I would fit into the toxic charity box.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, I don't know if the word, and I guess we can debate it, but I would say rather in the context of what I've been thinking, I think the toxic part perhaps comes in from, and using such a harsh word for me is how we basically go about publicizing that. The toxic part is the fact that we sometimes degrade, you know, the dignity of the next person by exposing their houses and how it looks inside, you know, almost to drive home a point in a good way, trying to show the situation. But I guess the toxic part comes in when you almost like laying bare the dire need of others, sometimes without their permission. And then, of course, the toxic aspect also from me would be the part where it sometimes, you know, then starts to erode the action itself and leads us to think that we have done better, and this is by our means, and that, you know, we get then all these likes and all these comments. Yeah, you're such a great person, you've done this, you've done that. So I guess that's for me perhaps where it can come in. But you're right, maybe we can get that, and we don't want to spend the next 30 minutes. I don't want to spend the next 30 minutes. I don't want to spend the next 30 minutes for Anwar to defend what he meant by toxic charity. You said it, Anwar, we don't want you to defend it. You're not defending it to us, you've made it, it's cool. We don't have to go into it in detail, it's cool. But yeah, maybe we can come back to the idea. But I know you did want to say something, but I wanted to say, you don't need to spend the next 30 minutes defending it.
Let me just 1 minute. I wanted to say, I don't know if you all saw on Facebook, there's this guy called B.I. Pakati or something like that. No. You never ever see his face, and he does like, he just meets people and then he gives them money or he does charity for them. And I find it so it's so inspiring, because you never ever see who he is, and all he does is you just see the video where and he goes to the like those who are really low, you know. Sometimes a person is not even mentally stable, and he'll come to them and he'll speak with them, you know, and he'll say, where are you going to? And that person would be like, no, I'm just walking around, I'm looking for something to eat. And then he'll take them into the store. You don't see who he is. He takes them into the store, he buys for them food, buys for them whatever they need, and then he comes out and he gives them, you know. So this is, like I was saying, that this is also, one is he's showing the video, he's showing the good, but he's not focusing on the donor. He's focusing on the actions of giving charity, you know. So that I just wanted to say that there is a living example of that.
Anwar, you wanted to say something?
If I may, if I may come in here. Okay, while not, you know, giving you all a 30-minute muqaddimah on the term that I use, toxic charity, right? But we know that a symptom of toxic charity, besides keeping people trapped in the poverty cycle, is that it strips them of their dignity, and that's really what we're talking about tonight. Is about stripping people of their dignity, right? And that's part of the higher level discussion of where do we want our community's funds to go, right? How can it be used more effectively? The thing though is that it's, for example, the example that Sheikh Zakaria used, right? For example, about someone broadcasting their charitable works and their contributions within society, but without exposing their face, right? We need to differentiate that. While that is good and that's cool, I like it, right? We need to differentiate about when people need immediate relief, because, like, let's say, for example, like what has happened in KwaZulu-Natal and in other parts of Johannesburg, right? When you need immediate relief, and when, for example, your situation is such that immediate relief, if we continuously provide you with immediate relief all the time, that means a hamper, a loaf of bread on a daily basis, right? Constantly giving you old clothes. I mean, like, you are a recipient of the different types of charity for, like, let's say, the past 30 years, but you're an able-bodied person without being given opportunity to grow, to develop, right? That is perpetuating the poverty cycle. And we need to ask ourselves, do we constantly want to do that? Is that going to be our, like, let's say, the marker of our social contribution? Or are we going to actually be able to say that, you know what, we've worked with a person over, say, perhaps say maybe 5 years, and in 5 years, we found somebody that was perhaps begging on the streets. And in 5 years' time, we helped them to get off the streets and onto their feet, and they are living lives that are actually productive, you know, and without a shred of embarrassment, you know, because feeling that I don't want to go into certain communities simply because, you know what, my face was on a poster for or for sadaqah or for lillah or for some emergency relief operation. That strips somebody of their dignity. So we need to be careful about it. I myself am a volunteer with the South African National Zakah Fund, particularly here in Johannesburg. And the organization that I'm volunteering for, now they've moved to a point of, one, they're focusing on development, and then two, also, when they are providing immediate relief for people that need immediate relief in the form of hampers and so forth, right? They have progressed to a level where they don't take photos of people and splash it over social media. What you will see, though, is perhaps the exchange of, say, goods, you know, between the one that's giving and the one that's receiving, but never their faces. Why? Simply to preserve the dignity of the person receiving help. Because at the end of the day, that person is a mother, is a father, is a husband, is a wife, is a brother, is a sister. They are part and parcel of the ummah, and they are part and parcel of the human family. And it's important that we preserve their dignity because we don't want to see them in that perpetual state of poverty. Tomorrow, they should be productive members of our society, and they should be comfortable, and we should be comfortable standing together in different avenues, without a sense of awkwardness about, you know, your face was on a poster, you were the poster child for certain organization, and you were receiving aid. You know, we need to move away from that, and we need to move into the realm of development, developing our communities so that people can stand on their own 2 feet.
This point about development, I've got a thought here that I'm going to sort of express like this. So taking the discussion away from what institutions are doing or what certain organizations are doing, to bringing it down to the transactional level, you and I on a daily basis, people like us. This idea of development. So sometimes charity is constantly seen from one lens only, and that's through monetary charity. This idea of development, perhaps maybe let's talk about that for a while. I think, for example, if I've got a skill, if I've got certain amount of knowledge, or even if I do have money, I always think about this. Like sometimes you see guys that are out there, and charity is always not only to people we classify as zakatable, right? We think that that's sort of if anyone's below the zakat line, then they are worthy of charity. Sometimes other people are also worthy of your charity. So for example, a youngster who's completed school or maybe even hasn't completed school, but is just finding him or herself in an environment where they're not sure what they're going to do. I always think, like, can I not take some money and maybe perhaps just, and again, I'm just going to express my thought like I have it. There's a 6 week barista course on how to make coffee and work in a coffee shop. So it's about, let's say, $2,000, $2,500. If someone or a couple of people come together and say, let's try and invest in this person. So we put together 2.5, we send this person on a barista course, whether it be a youngster or old person, but you're giving them then a skill that they then can commoditize and take into the market. You know, so I would like us to think about how can individuals or a group of people that want to do something, but you know, their charity keeps getting stuck into food and bread and baked beans and that kind of thing, which is good. I'm really not trying to downplay that, but how do we broaden that scope? And again, at a micro level, not at an institutional level where, yes, pooling of money can set up training camps and skills development programs and all of that. But let's try and talk about it from individual perspective. Maulana Zakaria?
Yeah, I mean, exactly, and who more example for us than the Prophet ﷺ himself, where we all aware was the incident of the person that came and he bought him an axe and he told him to go and chop some wood, and that was empowering him, because this person came and asked for some, he didn't have nothing. And the Prophet ﷺ actually asked the Sahaba, does anybody wants to contribute? And so some of them contributed. And he sent somebody to go buy an axe. And then the Prophet ﷺ showed him which forest to go and chop the wood also. He said, told him, go to such and such a place. There's a lot of wood in that place, go and chop there. And then he told him, don't come back, at least for the next 3 months, example. And this person, when he came back, he had in his hand money for zakat. He wanted to give his zakat over.
Wow.
When he came back to the Prophet ﷺ, he had some extra money. Let's put it in that way, that he wanted. So this is what we were discussing about empowerment. And it's so correct what you are saying, because
well, if I may come in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to interject, but that's exactly what we are talking about. That the person who received zakah or lillah sadaqah must be empowered to a point that over a period of time they will be contributors of zakah, sadaqah, lillah. That basically the idea of paying it back, giving back to society, which is exactly what the Sahaba radiallahu anhu did. And that's what we're missing in this society.
So, and another thing also, I agree fully with what you're saying. I mean, the other day I was at the garage and this youngster came up to me. And this youngster didn't have enough money to go to school. And what he was doing was that he was working at the garage because his mother was sickly. He doesn't have no father at home. And he literally had to leave school to work in the garage. He couldn't finish off his matric because there was no funds coming in at home.
Yeah.
So he was working at the garage, and now, this is the situation. So we need to find, like we said in the very beginning when Brother Anwar was speaking, of how are we disposing and giving our zakat, and what are the strategies that we can work in terms of acknowledging where our money is going to. Because many times when you say the word zakat, automatically it's identified with a certain group of people, and those people, they're the ones that can only receive zakat, and it's for nobody else. And that's the concept which is built in today's time. Mm-hmm. Whereas this charity was to also uplift whoever needs that assistance. Mm-hmm. But in today's time, even if I'm not going to be too open about it, but many people are scared to ask for assistance. Let's just put it in that way. Yeah. Many people are scared of asking for assistance because, they will be looked at as a beggar, somebody that is, somebody that, is extremely, whereas that person just needs a push forward in order to get where they are going to.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think, so training, education, a good word, a smile, these are all acts of charity, all acts of goodness, all acts that can, spur the person on. But I don't know why, as much as we can say all of that, I don't think an individual has it within their mind that I can do more than just money for food. I can do more than just money for, a meal or two. Because again, it's that recurring thing, and we've said it a couple of times tonight, is that you keep seeing the same people then come back. So this idea that one was we wanted to attack sort of the angle of charity from how we give in and how we publicizing it, and then talk about how does that sort of perhaps maybe even, and again, I'll use a strong term, snatch the dignity away from recipients. And then we've sort of tried to evolve it to a point where, okay, if we get this right, if we try to be discreet about our charity, if we try to keep ourselves, centered, sincerely, we're doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake, then what next? What other avenues can I sort of pursue to try and uplift the life of the next person? Anwar, I don't know if you want to maybe just elaborate on it. Again, try to bring it to an individual level. What can we say to people that would like to do more? And even if it is food, if it's food for one meal, yes, that's good. But how do we create a consistent stream for that person?
Okay, shukran, Sidi Muhammad Ismail. As a sociologist in training, you would know that basically our communities, the Muslim community, at least in this country, is socialized into the idea of, one, we give out food hampers, right? We build wells in different parts of Africa. And sometimes you can legitimately ask the question is that, in some of the countries where we build in wells, do they have like absolutely no public infrastructure to supply water? Because it seems like, we are the water supply company, because we are just building wells continuously. This is good, mashallah, but we also need to take an inventory of actually what's going on. So we're stuck on hampers, we're stuck on wells, we're stuck on old clothes, right? But are we talking about education? I can only talk about, for example, from my experiences and what I observe and what I read, right, and what I see. Some of our institutions are talking about, let's say, giving educational bursaries, some of them for university degrees and even postgraduate studies. Others are for, like, let's say, shorter skills courses, right? Some are even looking at things like such as business training, entrepreneurship training. Those are the type of things that we need. On an individual level, what our community also suffers from, I feel, while we're extremely very, very generous with our money, with our food, with our clothing, mashallah, is that we when it comes to like giving off our skills and our experience, we have a kind of a scarcity mentality. That, for example, the skills and experience that I have acquired, let's say over an X amount of years in a different field, in a different industry, whatever it may be, I don't want to share those skills with others, maybe that are younger than me, even whether they be, in need or not of zakah, sadaqah, lillah, is that we don't want to we don't have a concept of mentoring. So very few people in our community actually benefit from mentoring. So, for example, if I came up to Maulana Zakaria and said, I'm studying the deen and so forth, can you mentor me to be a good imam? It's one thing to study the sharia, but being an imam with your community is a whole different ballgame, right? And we know that there are many, many, like first-class graduates that the day that they start working in a community, they feel as if, I need to relearn everything, right? But had that person been mentored, the experience that they would have had would have been a much smoother experience. And this applies to every field, whether it be medicine, whether it be law, whether it be accounting, IT, politics, so many, many different fields, is the idea of mentorship, on an individual level. A good friend of mine always says, are you recreating yourself in somebody else?
Wow.
Are you giving off from your knowledge, from your skills, from your experience, right? Now we see in a lifestyle, in a life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our master and leader sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that he did mentor people. The fact is that immediately after his passing, his message could continue, and he could say with confidence that the first 3 generations of Muslims are the best of generations. Effectively, he mentored one generation that mentored the next and mentored the next, right? That mentoring has ensured that the deen has been passed down to us, right? But when you look at the lives of the 4 Khulafa, may Allah be pleased with all of them, is that while all being very, very unique, is that they bring in that mentorship of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the fore. You can see it reflected in their life. Means to say, they spend so much time with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that they imbibed his character to their best of ability, not just in matters of personal piety, but also in matters of thinking. So even though Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam does not love to see Muslims take over Persia and over the Byzantine Empire and Islam spreading to so many parts of the world as it has spread to today, is that he was confident that his disciples, his Sahaba, the people that he mentored, will be able to do the job. And that's what we're missing in this community. So on an individual level, ask yourself, is that who am I mentoring and who am I being mentored by? Find yourself mentors for yourself. And when you feel that you've acquired enough, while continuing to have a relationship with your mentors, let's have start to mentor young people. That's really, really important.
Yeah. Thank you, Sayyid Anwar. Very important. And
that's an abundance mentality that Muslims do have.
Exactly, it's that skills transfer, that ability that I also am someone of substance. And we've spoken about this in our discussions quite a bit over the last couple of weekends, is that vicegerency, that Khalifatullah al-ard, that we are the vicegerents of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the earth, which leaves us with multiple responsibilities, whether it be politically, whether it be socially, at a communal level, at an individual level, and then it's in those various sort of roles, it's broken down, and then the charity can be discussed in all of them, in fact. I want to ask, we have about 10 minutes. Maulana, have you been looking at the comments? If there's any comments, anything you want to factor in? If not, I'm going to ask that we spend maybe perhaps, whilst you're doing that, maybe Anwar can start and then you can chip in. So if we have to bring it again, and I know we're going through many discussions, we're not going to get into all of them. So I'm just trying to drive a few points on each. The idea that Muslims vie with one another for good, okay? We are people that vie with one another towards a good outcome. So what we see is, for example, with the relief call over the last...
Somebody put here, this is our brother Shafiq Ali.
Yeah.
He said, unfortunately, we've created a culture where people have become dependent on handouts.
Yeah. Look, Anwar, I don't know if you want to maybe tackle that one there, because I know it's the idea again that you're seeing the same people all the time. No one's ever taken that person. And I mean, when we speak like this, we're not pointing fingers, because the fingers are pointing at us. We are all individuals and we are all responsible. The same person you see at the robot every day in your community, has anyone ever taken him or her by their hand and said, I want to see you change. I don't want to see you here tomorrow. But we know some people have become institutions by themselves at specific robots,
True.
You see, but Muhammad, this is exactly what I'm saying. When I say toxic charity, is that we perpetuate the cycle of poverty. So when you see some people who are professional beggars, and I'm going to use the term, and it's not an impolite term, because this is what it is, right? We have professionalized, specialized in the idea of basically begging money of people. And when you listen to the stories that these individuals tell us, right? So that we can open up our hearts and open up our wallets to them, right? They're really heartbreaking. But we also know that there's a lot of people, that essentially, they're very, very creative when they're giving you, a story about how difficult their lives are. We have created that problem. So when I say toxic charity, I'm talking about creating that problem. When I'm saying that we must become advocates for the poor and be able to use the vast amount of resources that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with, both material and human, it's about us breaking the poverty cycle. And because I believe in the idea of Islamic civilization, right? I believe that our centers, our institutions, our NGOs, they themselves, at the end of the day, are lighthouses of this civilization. They should be, and we should be working with them, right, to establish the idea that we contribute towards people's development. And as we are contributing towards people's development, we then can contribute to the national and international conversation about the idea of breaking the poverty cycle. The policies that need to be written on a national level by government needs the Muslim voice. Right now, the Muslim voice, while strong, is tied a lot into relief aid, which we're very good at, mashallah. But the relief aid is for the emergencies that are appropriate for it. We can't keep basically perpetuating the poverty cycle by keeping people tied into receiving relief aid, food, clothing, hampers. That needs to change.
Fantastic points. I mean, that there we can And I mean, really, it needs much more thought. Anwar, you've just in the last 2-3 minutes encapsulated a very deep analysis of the root cause here and where we're going wrong potentially. And I think we can over time, hopefully, maybe unpack that in other podcasts and maybe even get 1 or 2 specialists, as you had indicated earlier on today that you'd like to get. So perhaps maybe for the next time, we'll keep that. Maulana Zakaria, if there aren't any other comments, I want to go back to that point around vying with one another towards good. So the idea that one community has done so much, they not show it off, and I'm using this word loosely, but not to really point fingers at anyone. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from ever looking down on any other people. But the idea that one community does, and then the other community tries to better them, and then what you get is then a saturation of perhaps maybe efforts in one area to the exclusion of other areas. So the idea that we are supposed to vie with one another, how do we balance that out? How can we get that differently? Perhaps maybe in the last 6 minutes that we have, can you guys maybe touch on that a bit? Maulana Zakaria and then maybe Sidi Anwar.
Okay, Sidi Anwar, you want to go first?
Okay, I think the idea of yusari'una fil khayrat, vying with one another in goodness, right, is something deeply embedded within our deen. But unless, for example, that we are bringing the human and material resources to fully bear on the goodness that we are trying to do and to provide for other human beings. Meaning, for example, can we have, let's say, a complete audit of a community that we are trying to assist? That means, can we do like a community mapping operation to know, for example, who are the people of the community? What are the actual needs, right? And for our different organizations, and I can say this because I'm a volunteer and I've been a consistent volunteer, alhamdulillah, right? Is that we need not vie with fight and compete with each other about who's giving out the most hampers. We must be able to, let's say, respect each other's, let's say, jurisdiction, right? When working in different areas. If we are able to do that, that I can respect organization A that specializes perhaps in education, and that their job, what they focus on is providing, let's say, after school extra activities for kids to keep them off the streets, to keep them out of harm's way, you know, to stop them from getting into bad habits such as drugs and so forth like that. Me from organization B, I shouldn't be trying to duplicate what they are doing. I need to respect their speciality. They need to respect my speciality. In that way, the community, which is very, very generous, mashallah, our funds will not be wasted on duplication. Duplication is a problem in the Muslim community. That's why we are having sometimes, in some areas, they're flooded with aid, and in other areas, hardly. It's real. But remember, this is not just about providing aid. We are talking about lifting communities out of the poverty. And that is a structural issue.
Yeah, and just touching on one of the points you made there, where it's done to the exclusion of others, then those other parties or other communities then themselves also feel marginalized. Then potentially it becomes a race issue, that why is that community only being seen to and we are not being seen to? Sometimes that dynamic comes into play, and then people start to point fingers at each other. Oh no, they don't like us, or our community is even lower than their community. That's why they don't want to come here, or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, you know, that's all. It's just so many points that really require much more reflection.
If I can interject on that, then just to make mention again, if you look at one of the qawaid, you know, كلم الناس على قدر عقولهم, right? Speak to people according to their understanding. And everything is in the seerah of the Prophet, you know, in these ahadith. So you can't go into a masjid and, you know, one of the things that you learn, and I remember when we were doing this qualitative research, in one of the points they call ethics. Let's say you're going to interview in a village or wherever, right? And one of the things that you have to do is write down some of the challenges that you'll have. And so you'll make mention that maybe the challenges will be, one of the challenges is that try to find out about the village and try to find out about the people over there and whatever. And I think so that should be one of the things that our organizations or those that are giving out charity, that you need to study the problems. And if we can get these understandings of the difficulties that people are facing in areas, because sometimes a hamper is not a solution. Okay, like we said, it's immediate relief. But if we're looking at empowering, because many times people say that, you try this here, it doesn't work out. Well, you need to upgrade your understanding of what difficulties people are going through and what are the skills that you can implement in that society which could work for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so if that can also be mastered, then it is also a solution in terms of building that community.
Yeah.
You know, and like we're saying, this is, I know this is not of the vying way where you go and sometimes you know you're all flooding and just providing for one community, and then the other community is not being taken care of. But you know, there's maybe over the weeks we can have these discussions and try to find out you know, certain solutions to these discussions, inshallah.
Definitely, inshallah. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been,
if I may add a concluding point.
You're going to have to be very brief, 30 seconds. We don't want to take too much more of the people's time, and we have said we'll take 45. We've just come up to 21:30. I know my watch is a bit fast on my computer, but it's been 45 minutes. Anwar, quickly.
Well, toxic charity is very immediately satisfying. It'll get you thousands of likes on the gram. Development work, which pays off much better, takes longer, but is much more rewarding. Ask yourself, as a community, as individuals, what do you want? What will be your legacy? Shukran.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. That is an excellent point and one that leaves us with much thought. We don't have all the answers. We need to come together at some point and try and brainstorm and see how we can do it in smaller pockets. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I think we'll conclude then just with the recitation of Surah Al-Asr, and we'll leave it at that. Shukran to everyone who tuned in, maybe for 5 or so minutes, maybe some have stayed for the duration. We thank you so much, and we hope that inshallah you'll join us in the future. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
شكرا يا أخي. مع السلامة.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.